Hey guys, in this video I'm going to walk through my Previs process for the eHarmony commercial for Spike TV. So here's one of the final spots. It starts on Stephanie, and she's talking right to us. The camera whips around and we see her first date. He's going to exit frame, and her next date comes in. He says his line. And once again. And then we spin back around, back to Stephanie, and that's the end of the commercial. So pretty early on we decided that we wanted to do as much of this commercial in real life as possible. We wanted to have Stephanie actually at the table, and anytime the camera moved, like this, like right here, we wanted this motion blur to feel real. And likewise, coming back around, we wanted to actually shoot her date at the table when the camera's moving. So because we decided to shoot this practically with a real table and with Stephanie actually interacting with it, there were a couple of questions we needed to answer before our production designer could go build it. So the main question in this scene was, how big is this table? And relating to that is, what focal length do we need to shoot at to see the foreground of the table and to see Stephanie and her date? So what I did is I created a camera in Maya that has the same field of view as in Red Epic, and I built a table at an arbitrary width, and I think I started around like 4 feet originally. And you can take this camera that is again the same field of view as an Epic, and you can look through it. So here's our scene looking through an Epic, and we spin around and you can get a good idea of what's going on. What's nice about working this way is that you can experiment with different focal lengths. Right now I have a 12mm programmed in, see on the focal length channel here, and say I wanted to see what a 24mm looked like, and it looks like this. And you can move the camera around, you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Obviously for the table width that we've designed, this shot doesn't work, but we know that before we go and build it. So after playing around with the table width and different focal lengths, what became apparent was that the more telephoto the lens, the farther back the camera would need to be from Stephanie to see the foreground table, and the bigger the table would need to be. And I wanted to keep this table as small as it could be to keep it, intimate and, as close to what it would actually have been in real life as possible. So what that meant is to keep the table as small as it could, we had to shoot on the widest lens we could, without it looking, really weird. And, from my experience of shooting with wide lenses, there were only really a couple of options. First was the Zeiss 8mm, the Ultra Prime, and that lens is really wide, but it has a really obvious distortion. That's kind of what it's for, is to shoot really wide, and it has that cool look. And so the next step up from that was the Master Prime 12mm, which I'd used a couple times before. And the amazing thing about that lens is that it's extremely wide, but it's also very rectilinear. It doesn't distort very much on the edges. So I kind of knew going into this from that point on that I was gonna keep the camera at a 12mm, and then whatever width the table needed to be, that's what we were gonna use. Knowing that the camera was gonna be at 12mm, we had now the flexibility to play with the table width. I placed Stephanie without the table. You can see approximately 3 to 4 feet from the camera to get that frame you'll see on the top right. And then I took this table and I started just expanding it until it looked right. And I ended about here. And once I had this figured out, the beauty of Maya is that you can add measurements and to actually figure out how wide things are and how tall they are. Some standard measurements I had here, this is in centimeters, but the table is basically 30 inches off the ground, and Stephanie is 135 centimeters tall sitting. And based on all of these dimensions and the 12mm focal length, we discovered that the table would ideally be 190 centimeters, which is roughly 6 feet. So we'd solved our problem of how big the table was. So here you can see the table once it's been built. It's roughly 6 feet wide, like we said. And in the middle is the Red Epic with the Master Prime 12mm. In the process, we also accounted for how big a hole we would need to cut in the table, which turned out to be like 2 feet for the head and everything.
Clear?
Although it's beyond the scope of this video, you can see that we're using motion control, and by having the camera being able to make repeatable moves, we were able to shoot the performer's takes individually, which is really helpful. Here you can see our motion control operator on the left and our director sitting and watching the monitor. This is a green screen shot. This is the shot we've been watching. That's what the camera actually saw. And if you remember the previs, the framing is pretty accurate. It's pretty similar. I was impressed.
It's time to master the smooth talk that will attract that one special lady. But it's not this.
I don't own snakes. No, they're fundamentally free. Though I do own 2 tigers. Round.
Or this.
So this is basically who I am, and I'm incapable of change. Now it's your turn to speak.
Or even this.
This is my 5th date today. So yeah, I'm pretty good.
Go to eHarmony.com and find the person you really want to talk to.
So that's it for this video. Make sure to check in with us at theworklight.net for more videos in the future. And thanks for watching. Bye.